I work at the Queensland AI Hub. If you don't know the Queensland AI Hub yet, so this is the space where we are. So we offer a co-working space for anyone who works with AI and machine learning, okay? And apart from the co-working space, we also offer programs and events for anyone who wants to learn more about AI and machine learning, or it's already working in the space, okay? But today, it's not only about the AI Hub, it's about all of us who are here. It doesn't matter your gender. Today is a special day because we are celebrating the International Women's Day. Okay? But before we kick off, I would like to let you know that if you want to go to the toilet, you can grab a key, a tag that is inside of the bowl, just next to the door. Then you walk the whole way through the corridor. You turn right, and then you're going to see a door on your right again, and you will see the toilets through the after door, okay? So without any further, I would like to welcome everyone and pass the microphone to those beautiful ladies.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayu. I think I might need the clicker as well, Sarah. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. For anyone who's still standing at the back and wants to be really brave, please come and sit at the front. It'll just look so much better in the photos. And we'll be able to put up more and more events like these. So please come on forward. We won't embarrass you via any stand-up comedy or anything. So, yeah, take a seat, relax. Thank you. Okay, so my name's Christine Bergy. I work for a company called SAP, but I'm here today as just Christine. Today's event is held in the light of International Women's Day. So I was thinking, I just dug up some stats for our discussion today. So if we talk about women in coding and AI, we actually see that we're exposed to gender stereotypes from as early as birth, really. I did find a study from Lego, look it up, that found that girls are typically encouraged to do sort of more performing plays, where boys were encouraged to do more physical and STEM-like activities. And the most interesting thing of that study, I found that girls felt relatively confident to sort of play with boys' toys. However, boys, the majority of them said that they were actually pretty scared to be ridiculed, and they did not dare venturing sort of into what's considered sort of girls' play. So, and I think that says a lot about our discussion today, because what we really want to do is, yes, we want to celebrate women in coding and AI, but we always want to keep in mind that that opens opportunities for women, but also for men, right? That's what we're striving for when we're talking about this theme around equality and equity. And before we get started, I'm really pleased with the turnout here today. And I'm really hoping we're going to have a wonderful discussion. I'm asking you to do one thing online and in the room that, this discussion will be maybe controversial, maybe uncomfortable, and we'll bring up a link where you can ask questions and engage with the panel, also if you have different views. And that's why we're all here today, to exchange. And feel free to, share information about this event online, but please always be kind and respectful, okay? Especially if you have a different opinion. That's why we're here today, and we'll talk. So that, because, there are already enough trolls out there, so I think that's something that we don't have to do today. Okay. you hear more from me, I want to introduce our panel. So we haven't really done a good job sort of sitting all in line. So no, stay there. So this is Juliette, exactly. She's the founder of FloodMap and has recently also won a Women in Digital Award. Before founding FloodMap, Juliette was a senior surface water engineer at SheCodes, where she was responsible for project delivery and stakeholder and risk management in both mining and the water utilities sector. Prior to that, Juliette worked in the urban water sector at SecWater, and her experience in their on-call flood forecasting operations gave her a good understanding of the specific regulatory and technical requirements surrounding flood forecasting. In her previous role at Golder Associates, Juliette was responsible for business development, project management, and project engineering in the mining, energy, and government sectors. This included hydrology, flood modeling, and mine water management engineering services. So yeah, very glad to have you here today, Juliette. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Joni Sytsma. Dr. Joni is a Chief Technology Officer at the University of Southern Queensland. She's a driven and enthusiastic technology evangelist, internationally experienced S&T leader. I was going to ask you what S&T stands for.
Science and technology.
Okay, very good. Now I know. I've learned something today. Science and technology leader and R&D scientist. That's research and development. That one I know. She's an innovator, mentor, and diversity advocate with a track record of leading teams to develop deep tech products, projects, and programs towards ambitious launch dates. She's passionate about using cyber-physical systems and emerging technologies in aerospace applications to deliver immense value for civilian and defense customers. She has an experience in executive leadership, strategic business partnerships, product management, lean startups, system engineering, program management, and major government programs in Australia and the US. Welcome, Joni. And last but not least, with us is Sarah Gavanloo. And thank you. I was asking her if I was like, am I doing this right? Who is the principal data architect at SAP. Sarah is that's what I said. She's a part of a global team which maintains a secure and well-architected technology environment that enables BHP assets and functions to be cyber resilient while supporting digital enablement and scale at pace. With a deep technical business process knowledge and experience in complex systems design, she ensures that data is always available and reliable to support leaders to make strategic business decisions by implementing standards and processes. She holds a bachelor in computer science, systems design and analysis, and a master's in engineering management and environmental engineering. Sarah has over 18 years of experience within the oil, gas, and mining industries in Australia and overseas. And she has a big passion about data management and is expanding her knowledge in cybersecurity and data ethics. Thank you, Sarah. So as I mentioned before, we have these little QR codes up here and on your chairs. You can scan them and you can submit questions that come up during the panel, or you can also vote for other people's questions. So what we'll do now is we'll spend sort of half an hour on the panel, and then we really want to make sure we pick up those questions from the online forum. So the topic for our panel discussion today is My Failures as a Gift. Lessons learned from women in coding and AI. And sort of before we get to that part, I mean, all of three of you clearly have succeeded in being women in the space of coding and AI and actually pursuing those careers. So our first question to you is, how did you start your career? And did you have any role models? How did you get into that STEM space? Maybe, Joni, we'll start with you. I think there's another mic, yeah.
Testing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I started my career basically, I think when I was 10 years old, right? And I was in Homestead, Florida, on the East Coast, and just north of me, a couple hours, was Kennedy Space Center, and like I would see the rockets all the time, and the passion was lit every time a rocket would go up, and that was the start, and it's not ended. So I've had multiple mentors over my life, and if there's anyone that I can put a shout out to, it's Dr. Alan Paul, who's at UQ now, the DST chair for hypersonics. I worked for Alan Paul when I first came to Australia, and I launched rockets with him. I launched 2 big rockets out at Woomera under the High Fire program, and he taught me what it means to fail in rocket science, and what happens when your rocket fails, and how you learn everything you can that killed that rocket, so that the next time you launch that rocket, maybe it's going to fail too, but it's going to fail in a different, new, and spectacular way. And he's basically passed on his path to success, which is learn from your failures and move on, and launch a rocket every year if you can.
Wow, that's so inspirational. It like reminds me of like Gattaca, like it's like that vision from like day one. I don't know, it's incredible. My career, I didn't know what I wanted to study when I was in high school. I knew I was really good at science, like biology and chemistry and 3-unit maths. Like I was clever, but I didn't even know what engineering really was, to be like really honest. And no one, in my family was an engineer, or I didn't really have any role models at the time. But it was my career advisor who sort of said, "Oh, well, you're good at these things. Have you considered a career in engineering?" And I remember saying like, "Oh no, like I don't want to build bridges. Like that all sounds a bit boring to me." And she was like, "No, well, why don't you look at the others, many different types of engineering?" I don't know that she really pointed out software at the time. This is going back a ways. But she was like, maybe environmental, because you're really interested in biology. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is incredible. Like I could build like renewable energy, or like, model like water and like flooding, like that I'm really interested in. So I chose that degree and loved it. And then has been a long journey that you read out in my career, over a decade in engineering consulting. Before then, experiencing kind of a couple of flood events quite closely, and their impact on friends and family, that really sort of inspired me to go out and use my skills to found FloodMap with my wonderful co-founder, Ryan, who's here tonight. And I think back to mentors and role models, and I think that it's really hard to pick one, because I think the truth is there's just been so many, almost like every day in my career, every year, just so many people that I've learned from every day and who've helped me, like, my career advisor, who I owe a big one for getting me into engineering and to where I am today. And then in my first jobs, when I said that, I wasn't really interested in soil sampling, but in water, that got me those career opportunities, and was so patient with my really dumb questions, and that I didn't know how to use Excel, and taught me the skills to get me to where I am today. So I just think, my mentors and role models are like the people around me every day who are talented and kind and have had the patience to share their skills and knowledge with me. Like I wouldn't be here today without any of those people, let alone the advisors and investors and mentors in my journey at FloodMap. So, and I think it will continue.
I'm from Middle East, from Iran. So in that culture, you have to be doctor or engineer. So I didn't pass the medical school. So that was engineering was my only option. So I graduated from engineering school, study computer science, system design and analysis, and I worked for 2 years. The first career was for a newspaper. I was working as an internal admin, but I consider myself a good example for women who are starting to come into coding, because after 2 years, I moved to oil and gas and gradually moving to engineering field, engineering management, project management. And it's a 10 years gap in my career to go to engineering and back to technology again. So I started like 8 years ago, working in different position in technology. And about last question, role model. Coming from the male-dominant country, I would say every single woman that fighting for their rights was my role model. So the first one would I say my mom, because in that environment that you're always pushing back, you have to prove yourself constantly, saying I'm women, I'm not second citizen. So, but I would say the first role model for me was my mom, to always encouraging me, you can do that. It doesn't matter what environment we're living, you have to do your best. So also same as Juliet, every single woman I can see, everyone, I don't want it to make it gender things, so every single person that teach me something, a small thing, I would be, have like a role model. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think what was interesting to hear about that is that, yes, we talk about women in STEM, but when we consider role models or why we've chosen certain careers, that's not necessarily only women that are that have given us that perspective, which I think is an important message to anyone in this room, that anyone can really be that role model and that sort of encouragement for young women and girls out there. And so, because today we want to talk a little bit about failures, maybe we'll take a very gentle approach towards it, because I think there's a lot of talk about imposter syndrome. I don't know if everyone knows what that is. Basically, it means that it's a condition, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but where you're constantly doubting yourself. And anything that you do, you're not really giving yourself credit for. You think like, oh, I've failed at this. And you sort of always have this nagging voice in your head telling you that actually everything you do is not really worth it. So, and I think there has been a lot of research to show that especially women are affected by that. And I find it very interesting because often, we all have these little voices in our head, and we don't often talk about it, and eventually you talk about it and you find out, you have that voice too. I'm not the only one. So yeah, maybe we talk about that first. Sort of if you've experienced imposter syndrome, if that's something that you can relate to.
Okay. So I've come to the understanding that me as a human is a lot of cells, a lot of clumps of brain cells that all talk to each other. And that means that when there's a decision to be made, there's not voices in my head in a crazy way. There's dissenting opinions that are coming from localized areas of cells, and they're all talking. And who do I listen to, right? Which one's right? And a lot of times I like to feel one whole personality and their opinion before I feel the other one. So I feel my way around the space, but ultimately the executive, which is what comes out of my mouth, I guess, the person I call me, has to make a decision. And there's consistent doubt, right? Because when one of my nervous centers has such a strong opinion, and then the other one does too, but ultimately I have to make one decision, that opinion doesn't go away. It's retained as knowledge that's, still ticking in there. And I've found that it's kind of hard to rationalize that other than, acknowledging that is my existence. And I kind of treat a lot of things as experiments, which is, I'm going to do this thing. I don't really think that's good. I don't like my plan, and I think, people are going to be mad at me, but I'm going to do it, and then, whatever comes out, I hope to learn from it. And then I keep on doing that, and it doesn't seem to work out too poorly. So I think I think I'm just going to keep on trying to do that.
Wow, I love this. I feel like I'm in like a counseling session to help me with my imposter syndrome. That was like the best engineering way plus neurobiological way to describe what's going on and how we should be responding. Man, this is changing my whole life. Yeah. I feel like I suffer from imposter syndrome massively and every day. Like, it's so bad. So right now I'm the CEO of a company, FloodMap. We are, it was founded by myself and Ryan in 2018, 5 years ago. Fast forward to today, we're 36 people across 3 different countries, Australia, US, and Canada, growing rapidly. And this is not, technology where, it's kind of like helping someone, like it's not gaming technology that's fun for consumers. Like, this is sort of like technology being delivered to emergency managers to help them manage high consequence flood events in real time, to make targeted decisions about where to evacuate people or what assets to protect, where to divert community recovery and psychosocial support. Like, it's high responsibility work. And so I think that, I carry a lot of pressure because of that alone. And then, you have to add on the fact that we are venture backed. So I've raised $10 million in venture capital and more than $1 million in government grant funding. And now with all of our staff, there's pressure to achieve certain revenue growth projections, and you're conscious of the fact that you're there to look after everyone having a job and their families in a tech downturn. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And I didn't go to CEO school. I just studied environmental engineering, and I don't even have a master's or a PhD or rocket science, so I don't know how to run a company. I'm waking up every morning and I literally think to myself, like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not good enough. The company needs like an actual CEO who knows how to do this. Like, every day I question myself. And I think I've done a lot of reading on imposter syndrome, and yeah, I reflect what Christine said, that I learned it happens to everyone, no matter. And sometimes I think the more like successful, not that I consider, myself necessarily successful just on a journey, but I think the higher up that you go in those roles, the more imposter syndrome you can sometimes experience. Like Maya Angelou and Albert Einstein suffered really badly from imposter syndrome. And so when the research I did is that the answer to imposter syndrome is by us all talking about imposter syndrome. So wherever I can, I talk about it, that I suffer from it every day. Sometimes I cry in the bathroom because I feel like I'm doing such a bad job at my job that I'm going to get found out. And that my board's going to fire me, and that my staff are going to have no confidence in me. But these are all thoughts, that happen in our head and Joni explained everything that's going on there. And I think we just have to continue to realize that everyone feels this way, and the fact that we feel this way, I turn it around then and say, actually, it's a really good thing, because I feel so inadequate. I'm like an anxious, what they call apparently an anxious overachiever, that I worry that I'm doing such a bad job every single day, that I work harder and harder and harder to try and learn more, to do better every day. And I think ultimately I flip it around and say imposter syndrome is just helping me continue to learn and develop my skills so that I can better serve my team as a better leader. So I think that's the only thing I can do, is just acknowledge it and keep learning.
Well, thank you for being so open and honest with us. I really appreciate that.
So it's like I want to talk about my very old friend, imposter syndrome. So I can link it to for myself, because I started to feeling and it was just pushing back from my career, even impacting my life. So I can link it back to perfectionism, and also from our childhood. It might come from our childhood. So in my 20s, in my 30s, even now that I'm talking here, I always had two versions of myself, the perfect and myself, like a hero and zero. So this one, I had no chance to make a mistake, no failure, just keep going, because if you make a mistake, it's equal to weakness. So that hero version and perfect version cannot make any mistake. So it takes me ages like going through all the failures and painful and getting help from therapy, was just trying to understand what is this. And I find that there is no perfect version. It's just only this real one. So you have to invest and build on the real one. So I'm not telling that it just disappeared. No, it's still with me. Just faded. I just try to fade it and just not say, hey, don't speak to me today. I don't want to listen to you. But yes, it's kind of, if you're managing it, it would be your lever for motivation and keep going. So it's, and believe me, everyone have with experience with imposter syndrome. So you're not the only one. And just keep going.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's really powerful. But what do we do when the times that our imposter syndrome is right? What do we do when we actually fail? Do you have any spectacular stories of how you have failed and how you've sort of come back from that?
So I failed a lot. I recently got really excited about my startup idea. It was really, really positive. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I quit my job, and it was a good job. I was the CTO of a company, and I chased it, and the timing was really off because I was trying to build space megastructures, and I needed to raise lots and lots of money to go after the space cities, right? And only when you try to do really, really hard things are you going to fail, or you try to do easy things, you fail. And all I can say is I had to learn, and I learned heaps in the process. So ultimately, jump back into a job, no worries, mate. It goes back to normal. But inevitably, I'm going to do it again. And then the next time, am I going to fail? Maybe, right? And is it going to be different? I guarantee you it's going to be different. It's going to be better. It's going to be more explosive, right? More spectacular failure is all I can aspire to. But ultimately, like, what I learned from all my failures is that's how you succeed, right? You don't learn how to launch rockets by not launching rockets. You can't get anywhere if you don't try. So if you reframe failure as the necessary learning process to achieve success, then you think about it as more of a positive thing, and I get kind of excited, right? Every time I watch Elon Musk back in the day blow up a rocket, that was one step closer to the vertical landing. And when he stuck the vertical landing, then the whole world was in awe. And now, every day, rockets are going up and coming back down and being reused just like airliners. So the future is there, right? So my failures are a gift, right?
Yeah, I love this. I'm thinking through, and I don't know, I don't have any spectacular, rockets launched and crashed in that spectacular fashion failure, but just I think I kind of feel like I, fail every day in some very small way, and just continually, as a startup founder, you make so many mistakes along the way, and you learn from them, and you have to be wired to almost not see it as a failure. I just think about it problem solving now. Definitely there was some things today that didn't work very well, and I was like, oh, cool, I can learn from that. Next time I'll do it a little bit differently. I think part of startups as well is all about, it's all about data-driven decision making, trying something, collecting the data on it, analyzing the data, and that can be any different type of data, and then iterating on it. So yeah, this sort of to fail is built in to ultimately succeed. If you don't fail, you can't succeed. I really believe that. The first version of FloodMap, FloodMap is actually named FloodMap with a double P because it stood for flood, mobile app as well as a flood map. So it was a mobile app I taught myself to code, and I was like, this will be great. Like, I can better communicate flood risk to the community via a mobile app. Anyway, it was a huge disaster. No one wanted the mobile app. And the feedback we got on it was really terrible. And so we rapidly iterated, and then Ryan built a way better prototype in like web-based technology, like a dashboard, but actually that fell totally flat too. And we, interviewed customers in the market, and they didn't want that. They said, well, we don't want yet another platform. We use ArcGIS or QGIS or Mapbox or name any other map technology, and we want it to integrate, like we want it to be an API. And so it iterated again, and without those failures, we wouldn't be the rapidly growing company that we are today. So you have to embrace it. And yeah, what is it? My failures are a gift. They are, because you can learn from them. It doesn't always feel great at the time, but it's about, I think, having the resilience. In any career, I think this is important, but especially in careers that are wired towards research and development, AI, or like startup, founding a startup. The most kind of quality you see in that industry is grit, tenacity and determination. So if you have that, you have the resilience to get past it and keep building.
I think regarding to failure, that the key is acceptance. It's important to understand that failure is a natural part of our life. It's not only you, everyone fails every day. If you imagine that we're getting a box as a life, all of us, if you're opening this box, it's just full of uncertainty. So, and you don't know what's going on. You have to try it. This is a journey. So the first key for me is acceptance. And when usually, as Juliet say, I'm dealing with it every day, sometimes more, sometimes less. But one of the things that help for me is just acknowledge my feelings. It's okay to feel angry, frustrated. Just the first thing is just try to acknowledge my feelings, and then after that, sometimes turn it off, step back, recover, and coming back. And this time, I'm not going to make the mistake. So the other thing is just I would say that imagining the world without failure would be boring. So without failure, those precious moments, the sense of achievement, those moments that you're celebrating your success would be meaningless. So yeah, the failure is and as you said, it's giving you resilience. Resilience is important for our life. It makes you stronger. It makes you resourceful next time you go into the failure, because every time we're losing our balance, so next time you know what's coming up, so you would be stronger to deal with it. And don't imagine that you're going to, it's just, failure wouldn't be a stop. It's going to be in our journey, just following us like a shadow. So accept it.
Yeah, I really like that notion that success and failure are connected, essentially. One thing that I was thinking about when putting when reading these questions was, I think for me, when I think about failure, is about when I wasn't selected for a job, when I applied somewhere and I didn't get it. And at the time, for me, that was a massive failure. I was like, my application should have been better. I should have put this down. Maybe in the interview, I should have said something different. I could have gotten this job. And it wasn't until I was interviewing people that I realized that you shouldn't take it personal. Sometimes you're not the right fit. Sometimes there are very arbitrary reasons. It's not necessarily something with you personal. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. And then, you'll try again. You'll find something else that in the end might even be the better choice for you. So yeah, definitely success and failure are sort of connected in that way. And I think I'm just checking the questions. If you've had a chance to submit questions up here. Maybe while everyone's sort of checking that, we'll take one last question from everyone, one last answer. and sort of what emotional, I mean, we've been talking very emotionally already, but what emotional advice or advice in general do you have to women starting out in coding and AI?
So I'm a little different, right? Like I'm a trans woman, and one thing I've found is going through the hormone therapy is that estrogen's real, yo. Like it, like I used to be a guy, and like there's like different hormones that make you feel different ways, but girl hormones are so powerful. And part of the way they're powerful is how my emotions are affected, and that colors my perception of the world. And sometimes when I'm feeling really bad, the world is grayer, right? And then the people are nastier, and then the things are bad. But when I feel bad, I've got to make sure that sometimes I detach myself and just don't let people see that part of me. I'm in leadership. I have to show a certain face. Like leadership needs to be consistent, and I want to be able to acknowledge when this happens. And look, there's nothing wrong with taking a break from work. You don't have to work your whole life to death. And if you get to the point where you're upset and your emotions are powerful, that's a good time to take a break and think about what's important to you. Go and get some exercise, go for a walk on the beach, take that day off that you really, really have been needing, but you've just been giving yourself to your work all the time. I'm talking about myself here. And like having been to burnout multiple times so that I'm actually pretty good at it, at least I think so. I can advise that it's not a great place to be, and you don't have to push yourself there. But if you have, be kind to yourself, because otherwise, like, what else are you doing this for? And the last thing you want to do is push yourself so hard that all you're thinking is, I should quit, I should quit, I should quit. And I'm talking about myself again. And once you get to that point, stepping back, calm down, reevaluate, stop working. Stop working.
Wow, such good advice. I'd actually reiterate a whole bunch of those things. Late last year, like after working insane hours, I think I really learned a lot of that. And maybe this advice I'm giving to everyone else is like not necessarily what I actually like follow every day, but I'm really trying to.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly. I've learned the hard way. I make the mistakes. But yeah, I think in a career, in tech and AI and any, I think, leadership position is so demanding. Last year, I worked 6 months of the year in Canada and traveled around the US, and it was just after COVID and things were mental, got COVID, and trying to manage a team across 3 different time zones. I was literally working the Canadian days, so sort of 9 to 4 p.m. I'd be online because my team over there was online, and then 4 p.m. Australia would be online and their day would start, so I'd log on to my sort of meetings with them 4 p.m. to midnight, and then everyone would go offline off Slack and email, so then it would quieten down, and then I could get my kind of work done till like 3, 4 in the morning, have like a few hours sleep, and then repeat. And there was no going out to see the sunlight or go for a walk. It was just sort of like working like, all the time in front of your screen. And it sounds crazy, like when I say it back, and think about it, I'm like, yeah, that's crazy not to sleep for like, really like the whole year and work yourself to that point. And then I think, saw the impact of that I reached burnout and I really wasn't doing very well. And it just has an impact on us. Like there's a reason that doctors and our parents tell us to like sleep, eat, drink water, exercise. So advice is like get sleep. It really helps like manage and regulate your emotions, drink lots of water, eat well. I didn't do that today either. And exercise for me, I think that's the biggest thing, like, from suffering a lot of stress in your career, and sometimes, for anxiety and depression, I found exercise can just be such a powerful thing to help us be not only physically well, but really like mentally resilient. And then lastly, what I'd add, I think, is just the need to again, advice that I say, not always what I do, but I'm continually working on it, is to always just like stop and think and not need to react, realizing that yes, some days if you're really having a challenging day, or there's other things going on in your life that make it really hard to focus on work, sometimes it is just good to take the afternoon off, be kind to yourself, and realize that the day and a good sleep is going to make all the difference, and then your mind's going to be back in the game better tomorrow. Or like, if it's an email or something that's making you feel reactive, or some difficult challenge or conflict in the workplace that you're debating, taking like a deep breath, waiting the next day to respond when you're calmer really does make such a difference with that consistency, I think, as a leader too.
I really agree with switch off. I do it myself because sometimes is chaos, the pressure in technology, the pace is very high. Sometimes you're feeling, again, going to imposter syndrome mode, and you're starting to blame yourself. But for myself, it's just stepping back. All of those things I try and exercise. But what I really would like to add on that one and work for me really good is I try to invest, to establish a friendship with English is my second language, let me rephrase it. So in the number of one hand, like 5, just start to have a friend, the friend that you can go to, the friend that in the very dark days, you can go and then putting on your shoulder and say, it's going to be okay. So it helped a lot in next to like all of those things you ladies said. For me, it's just when I'm in my dark days and starting to go to the phase that I start blaming, I have a friends to call. So I'm saying 5 because sometimes they are not maybe available. So my friends in different location, different time zones. So you always have a backup. So just it's not good to talking. Sometimes it happened to me like on 2 a.m. calling my friend in a state and just saying, hey, I'm not feeling okay. And she said, if you keep going and not dropping off, you're feeling worse. So yes, friend for the dark days would be very helpful, not only for career, for life, because what we experiencing in our career is directly impact our life. You cannot say, I do have some issue with my career and it's not impacting my life. So that would be my tactic, I would say, to dealing with it, with my issues.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, that's really helpful and, really important to have these conversations. I had a look at what was submitted. So there's a way to vote. So I'll go through the question first that was sort of upvoted. But we have 17 questions in total. So I'm afraid we're not going to make it through all of them. So maybe what I'll do then as a next one is I'll just do a random scroll and I'll see which one comes up, okay? So we'll start with the popular one. So that was, what do you say when you hear people say that women have it easier in tech? I hear this a lot when it comes to getting a job in the tech industry.
Oh, no. Women don't have it easier in tech. Getting the job is a one-time event, and I don't think they have it easier there either, right? So I've worked in all these engineering organizations that have been almost entirely male-dominated, at least 70% male. And what that means is there's this communication style that is distinctly male and a judgment on communication style. So women and men absolutely communicate differently. And men judge women poorly for not communicating the same way they do. And when they're the majority, then of course they're right, you know? No, that's not what I meant. No. So women have it very tough because they have to communicate with this team member, and 10 of them, and frequently women are highly outnumbered. And what does that mean? You have to completely change the way you communicate? Well, that's not great. You have to change yourself just to go to work? That's not my idea of easy. And because of that, women get judged poorly and then held back in careers. And so I completely disagree that women have it easier. And they have to fight so much harder, right? You have to fight so hard just to like be considered an equal. Like men get to say stuff with authority and a deep voice, which I have a deep voice, you know? But that deep voice just lets you get away with stuff. It doesn't mean you're right, you know? And I've seen it over and over again. I kind of hate it. And every time I see it happen in my organizations, now that I'm in leadership and, you know, I'm the boss, I get to say, hey, you know, pull your head in. That's not how we act around here. And I like to do things with women and basically say, you speak first, you know, you speak first. Because asking the women on my team to speak first means everybody's thinking the answer to the problem, because we're engineers and we're problem solvers. But if a woman has the opportunity to say the answer first, then hopefully all the men can understand that, right? Women are smart. They just are different. And they're the minority. And that's what keeps women out of tech. And I don't like it.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think that's such a good answer, and I totally agree with so much of that. I think that, yeah, it's a very simplified thing to say and a little bit maybe lacking awareness on some of the other kind of like statistics. Like, does the statistics say that women have it easier in tech? I think not. If you look at the, you know,
Sorry,
amount
quick
of
one. Woman with the baby, please stay. You're not bothering anyone.
You're not bothering us at all.
It's barely a little bit of background
It's super
noise. So please keep listening and be part of the... I mean, doesn't mean that you have to stay. If you had to go to the bathroom, please be my guest. But, okay. I'm sorry I had to interrupt you there, Joey.
Of course, yeah. I think that, you know, statistically speaking, if you look at female founders in tech companies have raised, the recent statistics were showing that was like 2 to 3% of venture capital funding, and comparatively 97 to 98% went to men. So like, what are the statistics really saying about women in tech when, yeah, there's then the global kind of sample size that maybe only 20 to 30% of founders are women, but that suggests a 10x harder time that they are having raising capital. Then still there's statistics that we talked about just before this panel around pay inequality. Like, is that there yet? Women in leadership positions, there's a lot to unpack there. And I think it's not to dismiss the challenges that other people are having either. Like, I want to acknowledge that I'm sure there's many men, there's many people that are older, many people from other minorities, different ethnicities, sexual orientation that are also having a hard time in tech as well. So it's not all about women. I get that point, but yeah, it's just, I don't think that's simple to just say that they have it easy. It's not, the world is not that simple.
Thank you. It's interesting because in like 2 weeks ago, I had this conversation with 2 friends, one of them male and one of them female, that's saying, if you can get a job if you're women, and my expression was, wow. So the thing is just we have a big bias that that you have as a woman, we have always proved ourselves that we can say, hey, we can do that. Guys, by default, they think they can do that. But women, if you get a position, you have to prove that you cannot make a mistake. So that is a double pressure to us. So, and also the conversation is in Australia, in here, that Australia is a leader country that in gender equality. So, and even in Australia, we have still some job that the women not get that job because they not consider as a full resource, because there is a bias again. Women can get married, can get pregnant, can get kids. They always have a commitment. So we are in a transformation of this one. But the thing is, like, after my conversation with my friends, I was thinking, okay, we have a long way to go. And we are in the middle of, in the earlier stage, that women are starting to coming to work, not only technology, because technology is always saying this is something for STEM, engineering, science, mathematics, always saying this is something for guys, and it's not easy to change it in one night, a decade. I don't know how long it takes, but yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's why we're here, right? That's why we're having these conversations. I think my answer usually would be, well, if they have it that easy, then where are they? Like, I don't get it. Like, please explain it to me. But yeah, so I'll just refresh this actually to make sure I have the latest. There was a second question, sort of similarly rated. What AI technologies do you use at your companies in terms of programming languages, libraries, ML models? Do you want to sort of, walk us a bit through that?
All right, prefacing this that I'm an environmental engineer and not a machine learning engineer, but we are exploring some super interesting technology. Our team is made up of software experts, the flood engineering kind of hydrologists and hydraulics experts, and then the data science experts. And the beautiful thing is that they're all working really collaboratively together to not only build the software and the data pipelines, bring the physics and sort of like, information about how these models need to operate, and then the expertise to do it. So our stack, we're building in Python. We use AWS and run like a lot of our models on cloud infrastructure. And I think in our experience, it's been the investment in all the infrastructure to go around the models, not just the R&D of the models themselves, but operationalizing them for continuous forecasting is a big part of the challenge. And there's some fascinating work. We've been using a lot of neural nets, and particularly doing some work with physics-informed neural operators to explore how that can be used to replace some of the physics-heavy sort of second-order differential equations that are currently used in the just traditional physics-based hydraulic modeling side of it, and then also some sort of neural nets that we're using on the hydrology forecast side to predict peak water height, but we experiment with many different types of other models.
I saw Python on the SheCodes curriculum.
My current job is data architecture, so I'm in kind of upstream. What you guys usually doing and using data is downstream. So basically, what we're doing is we're designing and establish cyber resilience environment for data through the life cycle. So it would be a little bit different. So regarding to data architecture, but we're using the same Python, AWS. So yeah, my job is not like directly hand on a code. So yeah, data modeling, data engineering. Yeah.
How about yourself, Joni?
I was invited at the beginning of this to bring up contentious opinions. So here it is. I have a big background in embedded flight control, so this is real-time embedded C++, really close to the hardware. Timing is really critical because, particularly with the inertial navigation system, it's got to go tick, 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 right? And AI, as far as I've seen, has no place in embedded flight control. And I don't want it because embedded flight control of rockets, particularly highly agile rockets, is hard enough as it is without the weirdnesses that AI can bring into it. I've actually oversaw several R&D projects where we tried to inject AI into the flight controller. They all behaved very well because when you train it, it works well on the training data. But flight control and the behaviors of flight control is defined by the variability. You fly through a different kind of turbulence, and now all of a sudden I'm tweaking the AI model differently, and then airplane no fly so good, and then it crashes. So like I'm going to say that, yeah, certainly in some of my other products I've inserted AI, TensorFlow and such, but I haven't yet seen an application of AI to, missile and vehicle flight control that is suitable for injection into real aerospace products. And, aerospace products have to be certified for safety because they kill people if they don't work. And then the aerospace products I work on kill people if they do work. So, you need to, really have a lot of trust in the autonomy and the AI applications that aren't vision-based, because vision-based AI, that's good stuff. But actual flight control, I don't believe in it.
I once heard this quote. It's not from me. I heard it somewhere. The opposite of artificial intelligence is real stupid. So that reminded me of that. Somebody asked, and 4 people voted for it. And I actually really love that question. Have you been in a situation where you need to be hard on other execs or staff? How do you handle it without being called a B? Star, 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 star. Even though men get away with it. Was the question clear? Okay. How do you handle it? Well, no. Have you been in a situation where you need to be hard on other executives or staff? How do you handle it without being called a B star, star, star? A bitch. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
I try to kill people with kindness and humor at all times, and I try to have a lot of empathy for the reality that everybody's human and just recognize that while some days you're at 100%, probably most of the time you're between 60 and 80, and I've got to accept that. I've managed quite large teams and quite a few teams, and having a huge amount of empathy helps. And if I get to the point where I am going to be outwardly mean to somebody, I need to not talk to them, because I like to win the hearts and minds of my employees, and happy people build the robots faster. On the other hand, hard discussions are best held one-on-one. Absolutely, I will not do these discussions in an open forum. I don't want to punish people in front of other people. That's not the kind of leader I am. Unless, and this hasn't happened yet, but unless it's absolutely a lesson I got to teach everybody. And when that happens, that'll be a bad day for me, because that's not something I want to do. It's something I had to do. So.
Yeah, I think I agree. I've never been called a bitch in my face, or in person or digitally, but maybe someone has said that to someone else about me. I don't know. I think, it's just about being, hard conversations are totally necessary as a leader. An employment contract is a contract with duties and responsibilities, with performance targets and metrics, and people in our teams need to meet these, and we need to be really open and honest when we're not seeing that performance from members in our team. But I think there's a nice way to do that, and there's a really mean way to do that. And so I think it's about sticking to the facts, one-on-one conversations, and being really empathetic and understanding, and trying to understand, the reasons why a certain situation might be happening, understanding, having conversations with that person, making it a two-way conversation, not just delivering or yelling or making accusations or assumptions or judgments to that person, but saying hey, what's going on here? I've noticed this fact. Why might that be happening? What can we do to support you? How can we change this? And working through it together. If you think of not just you reacting to that situation and communicating outwardly to that person, but imagining that you and that person are both on a team, and the hard fact is a separate thing that you're both challenging together, and how do you work your way through that?
I didn't have any experience to be called B in my face, but maybe on my back. I don't know.
Do we always want to be liked? It's maybe part of it as well.
But I have been in a situation that someone was bullying a lady and was talking and not very politely. And in BHP, it's a rules. It's not the company. I think everyone's responsibility, because someone who get bullied maybe has a fear, cannot stand up or speak up. So the thing is just you have to stand for that person. I have done this one. It wasn't easy, to be honest. So I said the quote that you say to that person, are you okay with this behavior? So the same time at the same room. So with that person, because you have observed that behavior. So I didn't have that experience with my team. Yeah, it was a different team.
Yeah, I think definitely sort of having hard conversations one-on-one is probably the way to go in these situations. It's 7 p.m. I want to check with Angela and Mayu how we're going for time. Otherwise, I would do one more random scrolls question. One more? Okay, so that's the last one. So this is mine. By now we're at 21 questions, so I'm sorry for everyone who didn't get their chance. Maybe we can catch up one-on-one later. So I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. Okay. Oh, what do you think is better, puppies or kittens? Sorry.
Puppy.
Oddly, one person voted for it.
Yeah, definitely puppies.
I'm allergic to cats.
Okay, well, I think that was a brilliant last questions. Nothing to add. Thank you so much. Okay. Do I hand over to you, Mayu? Yeah.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to organize high-speed networking. It's going to be a little bit crazy because we are a lot of people, but I think it's going to be good too because we have been sitting on this not comfortable chair for the last 40 minutes. Surely you guys want to stand up, stretch a little bit, grab a few drinks. We are going to organize the chairs. How it's going to work is, we are going to have 2 rows. One row will move after 3 minutes. So you will have 3 minutes to talk to someone else who you don't know, okay? 3 minutes, it's not enough. Every single time when I run a similar activity like that, there is always someone who says, oh, Mayu, I couldn't talk everything that I would like to have talked, blah, 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 blah. But it's just like a speed dating, okay? But with someone that perhaps you can just introduce yourself, do your best. And then there is this technology, this social media called LinkedIn, okay? So if you are smart enough, grab the name of the person who you are talking with, okay? So because we are gonna organize the chairs, please, really, for real, stand up, okay? Grab a drink again or go to the toilet. And again, thank you so much for coming.